Hey, everybody, and welcome to this Monday edition of Wiltfong Whiparound. I'm Grace Remington with our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. We have a lot of quarterback news, a couple crystal balls, and another round of Stump Steve on the way. But first, let's start in Tallahassee, Steve, where FSU held its Legacy Weekend. Vibes were at an all-time high, it sounds like, with guys like Jameis Winston back on campus. So what are you hearing from FSU's top targets after the weekend?
It's kind of a weekend that kind of mirrors Oklahoma's Champ U barbecue that they do in the summer, where they have a bunch of alumni come back, their famous alumni that are in the NFL, a bunch of sports cars parked on the field inside Norman. I love that Florida State did this weekend, bringing back Heisman Trophy winner Jameis Winston, giving Jermaine Johnson a brick on campus, and letting recruits soak in the tradition and all the great players that have played at Florida State. And one of the things that stood out to me about the weekend, Grace, was the presence that Mike Norvell had within the recruiting weekend. He's not just someone that sits in his office and they just shuffle and recruit after recruit after recruit, and they get their 15 to 20 minutes with them, take a picture, and on to the next young man. Mike Norvell's out there rubbing elbows, spending the most. Some of the recruits on campus said they spent the most time with Mike Norvell in comparison to their assistant, their position coach or their lead recruiter. So starts at the top. Mike Norvell is one of the most engaged recruiters in the country. And he really doesn't get much notoriety for that because he's just so subtle with it. But he's someone that really connects with Florida State's top targets. Obviously, they're rebuilding the program. They have the nation's number 4 recruiting class right now. Top 247 quarterback Luke Croman was on campus and said, I feel good about a couple dudes, can't say anything, but big things are going to happen. FSU hosted so many of their top targets. Let's just talk about a few of them. I logged the 24/7 Sports crystal ball forecast in favor of the Seminoles for Charles Lester III, which should come as no surprise to people that tune in to Whip Around regularly. We've liked Florida State's position for him for months now. He did a great interview with Knowles 247 where he told Zach Blostein and those guys that he thought about committing to Florida State while on campus. Now, there's still some major competition for him. He's been to Alabama several times. He's been to Georgia several times, has some upcoming trips to Ohio State. Florida's in there, but Florida State continues to set the tone in the recruitment for Charles Lester III. Top 247 defensive lineman Kamarion Franklin has also been to Florida State several times. He's a guy that had 19 sacks as a junior for Lake Cormorant High in Mississippi, could play anywhere across the front, but loves that Florida State is prioritizing him on the edge. He's really connected with that coaching staff and says that Florida State's in his top schools for sure. I also think that Florida State is the one to beat for St. Thomas Aquinas receiver James Madison II. We talked about that coming into the visit. He had another fantastic trip. Now, anytime you're talking about a player from St. Thomas Aquinas, they're highly recruited, and so perhaps the pulse of that recruitment could change down the road, but I really like where Florida State sits for James Madison II right now. Still loving my 24/7 Sports crystal ball for top 247 offensive lineman Jason Zandamela. He's maybe the top center in the country. He was back on campus. Now he's going to visit Miami in April, but Florida State continues to be the one to beat right there. He talked about the culture, loves the coaching staff, loves being around the players, said he feels the exact same way. Every time he goes there, it's a warm feeling in his heart, he said, Grace. But Peyton Pierce is a linebacker from Texas who is one of the best quotes in the class. I love talking to him after he takes visits. But Florida State, his visit made an impact on him from Coach Randy Shannon. Coach Fuller said the whole staff was awesome. He said he actually learned some stuff from Coach Shannon, even talked some fishing. But the whole football program, very organized, made an impression on him. Other offensive linemen that liked it, Fletcher Westfall, Ty Hilton, Kavian Broussard. Florida State's going to be in the middle of it for those guys. And then they had some elite 2025 prospects on campus. 5-star Elias Williams, Florida State, probably the early leader for him. 5-star linebacker Georgia commit Jaden Perlotti, loved it. 5-star safety DJ Pickett has been to Florida State so many times. This was an opportunity for him to get around new DBs coach Pat Surtain, who obviously has a ton of pedigree with his time in the NFL. And then Ivan Taylor's our number one ranked corner in the top 247 rankings. I don't think there's a program recruiting him harder right now than Florida State, and getting around Coach Norvell, Coach Surtain, Coach Ratliff. He had a great time. Got to see his cousin Bishop Thomas practice. Really enjoyed meeting Jameis Winston. So 5-star receiver Caleb Cunningham's another one that Florida State's gotten to campus over time. So in addition to this program building on the field, having a great turnaround season last year, they bring back one of the best quarterbacks in college football, bring back the most starters in college football, right, Grace? Correct me there. That's your expertise, right? I think they do.
It's something like 80 something percent of the production returns.
Yeah, they should have as long as those guys don't read their own hype, Florida State should take another step forward this year. We've seen programs not handle success well, so we'll see how Florida State handles some success this year, but certainly everything's there to have another great year. And top 5 recruiting class right now, looking for more and getting way ahead in 2025. So Florida State, in the process of building back to a powerhouse, this season will be pivotal in that climb.
Yeah, and then maybe they'll all have that warm feeling in their heart. All right, staying in the ACC, big weekend for Clemson, hosting its second junior day of the year. Several recruits you want to touch on here, but the biggest headline coming out of their weekend was quarterback Nolan finally gets the offer from Dabo Swinney. So what are you hearing out of his trip?
Well, he had a great trip. He had a fantastic time spending time with Dabo Swinney, new offensive coordinator Garrett Riley, former Clemson quarterback, great Taj Boyd. And he was there with his mom, his grandmother, his sister. His sister was running around playing with the coaches' kids. They instantly just felt a great connection with that Clemson staff, being on campus with them. Now, he had been building a rapport with Coach Riley when Coach Riley was at TCU, but to get to Clemson, get the offer in person from Coach Swinney, see all this Clemson alum that work there, see just the program and all the success they've had, and just how much the people within the Clemson program love and care about each other. I think it really resonated with Nolan here, and I think they shoot up towards the top of his list going into upcoming visits to Miami, Ohio State, Arkansas. Texas A&M's a major contender for him. Alabama's in the picture, but Clemson working to get them back the first weekend of June, where they're going to have their big official visit weekend. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got back there for that. But Clemson's proximity to home is real exciting. He talked about his offense there at Langston Hughes, where they won a state championship, where he threw for over 4,000 yards and 55 touchdowns. He said that the offense that Coach Riley runs is similar, even from a verbiage standpoint. So feels very comfortable with that as well. And so in his words, they definitely improved and moved up on our board. And he talked about the mindset, the winning mindset, winning on and off the field at Clemson. So they're a big-time contender for Nolan moving forward. And Grace, we got a lot of Nolan coming up this week on the 24/7 Sports Network. He's going to kick off our War Daddy series tomorrow. We're going to talk about it on the 24/7 Sports Recruiting Show. But a little fact on our guy, Prentice Nolan. is not his nickname. It is his legit middle name. His dad's nickname in high school was Nolan because he resembled Michael Jordan, moved like Michael Jordan in basketball, dressed like him. So his dad was Nolan in high school. And then when he named his son, it's Prentice Nolan, and it's on his birth certificate as
That's
said.
awesome.
Which makes Micah Butter Tollefson the best nickname out there right now. Then,
well, we were right. Prentice being Regal, he is among rare heirs. So there we go. The whole name is Regal. All right, let's move to the SEC, where Vandy obviously trending up. The Doors coming off a season in which they won their first SEC game, couple SEC games for the first time in 3 years. Now they're bulking up their quarterback room with a commitment from in-state quarterback Whit Muschamp. Yes, the son of Will Muschamp. So, Steve, why is he picking Vandy?
Well, Coach Clark Lee, defensive-minded head football coach, but he knows they're only going to go as far as that quarterback room can take them. And they put a lot of emphasis on recruiting signal callers, him, Joey Lynch and company, since they've arrived in Nashville. They got some young guys in the stable, but they want to keep it going. And they have a really exciting 2-quarterback class right now as Whit Muschamp joins fellow Chattanooga product Jeremy St. Hilaire. So Clark Lee and the Vanderbilt staff putting a fence around Chattanooga quarterbacks right now. Their rivals, Whit Muschamp's at Baylor School, Jeremy St. Hilaire's at McCallie School. A source told me they were one play away from playing against each other in the state championship last year. So obviously, I think there's some hope that they'll get a chance to play against each other in the state championship this year. But Whit Muschamp, I talked to him about his decision. He said, I'm most excited about competing for championships and playing under Coach Lee. And after getting to know some of the players, they believe wholeheartedly that Vandy's headed in the right direction. They won their first 3 SEC games in forever. So obviously the trajectory, the arrow up on Vanderbilt right now. Muschamp led Baylor schools to a state championship as a junior, threw for 3,187 yards and 31 touchdowns. He threw just 2 picks, Grace, one in the opener and then another one on a Hail Mary. So he's incredibly accurate with the football. I talked to his head football coach, Eric Kimry, who's got several state championship trophies in his lab. He talked about Muschamp, said he's instinctually elite, got a great feel for the game. His accuracy, particularly under duress, is incredible, never puts the ball in jeopardy. And of course, and then you see it on film, he's got an ability to extend plays, attack to all levels of the field, has a great pocket presence. When the pocket's dirty, he can escape and make things happen. And Coach Kimry said, look, this is a young man that's only 185 pounds right now. So wait till he's 205, 210. So he talked about the upside and the mileage that they have there. But both these quarterbacks committed to Vanderbilt right now, accurate with the football. They're winners. Their touchdown to interception rate is off the charts. And so in a year where schools are trying to struggle to find difference makers at the position, Vanderbilt doing a heck of a job here, landing 2 of the state's best quarterbacks here and getting them in the fold early.
So I will add to that. I recently met Clark Lee and Joey Lynch and a couple of their personnel people at a Glazers coaching clinic here in Nashville a couple weeks ago. And I left feeling so impressed. And I would follow Clark Lee, whether he was leading any type of business or organization. So seeing a guy like Whit Muschamp, a coach's son who knows the industry, that he turned down offers from Cincinnati, Louisville, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Virginia to go to Vandy because he believes in Clark Lee, that doesn't surprise me at all. So I'm really excited to see what they're doing here in Nashville. But another quarterback commitment happening on Monday. A top 30 signal caller picks Mizzou over Colorado and North Carolina. What's going into his decision?
Well, Daniel Kaelin visited Missouri over the weekend, and there was a lot of buzz coming into that weekend that he would end up in the fold for Coach Drinkwitz and company out of Bellevue West there in Nebraska, 6'2", 200 pounds. There wasn't a program that prioritized Kaelin more here at this point in the process than Mizzou, and I think that really stood out to him. Some of the other schools that were on his short list, they had a couple other quarterbacks on the board, and I think for Missouri, he was the guy there. They believe in him, and certainly he threw for 3,186 yards and 36 touchdowns as a junior. Easy to see why. Also has that perfect IQ score, but Missouri got him on campus this weekend, gets him in the fold, and he's ready to help start building this program or building this recruiting class that also saw them land a commitment. Over the weekend from offensive tackle Ryan Justice. So it's Missouri starting to get some momentum on the trail. Daniel Kaelin, one of the quarterbacks that they absolutely coveted the most. He's going where he's wanted, and they're getting a talented, extremely high IQ signal caller.
All right, LSU has the most commits in this cycle so far, a total of 11 after a recent decision from linebacker Devon Keys, but he's not the only name we're watching after the weekend for LSU. So what's going on with the Tigers?
Well, first, let's talk about Devon Keys. We talked about him on Whip Around a couple weeks ago following a big recruiting weekend at LSU to kick off March. We said he was a guy that LSU was trending for, that they were super high on, and now he's in the fold, and easy to see why when you follow Gabe Brooks's coverage from the Under Armour Dallas event this weekend. He was one of the most physically ready to play college football prospects on the field, a specimen that racked up 123 tackles, forced 3 fumbles as a junior, also plays running back, scored 13 rushing touchdowns. He shows up on special teams. He's in the backfield. He can bring a pass rush presence. He's a very versatile second-level defender coming out of the Lone Star State there, Aledo High School state champion, all-stater, a winner, a guy that's wired right, and the guy that fits what Brian Kelly's looking for from an intangible standpoint as they continue to try and build that thing up from the momentum that they had playing in the SEC championship game. 5-star defensive lineman Williams Nwaneri and David Stone both visited LSU over the weekend and had a good time. TJ Lindsey's a defensive lineman that they're rising with right now. There's been some Notre Dame, Michigan buzz for a little bit with him, but he had a fantastic visit to LSU. Charleston Collins, he's another guy that Gabe Brooks mentioned from the Dallas Under Armour, being one of the more physically impressive young men on the hoof, but he's a guy that's been to LSU a few times now. Continue to love where LSU stands with Charleston Collins too. So look, LSU, they have one of the best recruiting classes in the country right now. They sit at number 2 in the standings, but they're just getting started. There's a lot of elite guys out there that have LSU on the short list. They've had as many prospects as any school visit their campus so far here in March. And I think that the time that they're having around Brian Kelly and the staff being inside Tiger Stadium is really resonating with these recruits.
All right, let's go up north a bit. For Michigan, the Wolverines have the 5th-ranked class in the cycle with 7 commits and a couple names they could be adding to the list soon. They recently hosted several quarterbacks, including 2 from 2025, including the top-rated quarterback Bryce Underwood and Ryan Montgomery. So why don't you take us through this long list of prospects we should keep an eye on for Michigan?
Well, let's start with the 24/7 Sports crystal ball forecast in favor of Michigan. My prediction joins Michigan insider Steve Lorenz. Aaron Childs, he's one of the most coveted players on Michigan's board, regardless of position, the number 1 recruit in the state of Maryland per the 24/7 Sports composite. Been to Ann Arbor a couple times, just fits into the culture of that program. 6'3", 220-pound, exciting second-level defender, athletic, a guy that can play in space, that hits hard, change of direction, quickness, a fast closing tackler with instincts, would be a monster pickup for Michigan if they could ultimately land him. And I love where they stand going into spring. Now, I think this is a recruitment that'll go into the summer. I think he'll get back to Michigan, but I think, based on everything I'm hearing, Michigan has really set the tone in this recruitment for one of their favorite players on the board. Again, regardless of position, top 247 edge, Brian Robinson was on campus again from Ohio. Continue to like where Michigan stands for him. He had another amazing time on campus, knows the coaching staff well. And so Michigan's well positioned for him. There's some guys that they certainly made a move with in 2024 and 2025 over the weekend as well. And let's just talk about a few of those quarterbacks here. Bryce Underwood, the number 1 quarterback in the country from Belleville High, 2-time state champ. He made a last-minute visit to Michigan, and him and the family were super excited that they did. They got a chance to watch a spring practice where they mentioned the development that they've seen from J.J. McCarthy already from the bowl game to now. And they really hit it off with new quarterbacks coach Kurt Campbell. And Kurt Campbell, the preparation, he's ready for these quarterbacks when they come to campus, and they really hit it off. They loved talking X's and O's and talking about the potential fit that Bryce has in the program and what the program could do for him as a player. And same thing for Ryan Montgomery. Ryan Montgomery from Findlay, Ohio. He's one of the most sought after players at the position in the country right now as well. Been to Michigan a few times, but Kurt Campbell making an impression on him as well. Michigan's offered Montgomery, and they seem to be near the top of his list as well with 2 good visits there. But Marquise Easley's a 2024 offensive lineman from Illinois that had a good visit to Michigan, quickly pointed to Sharon Moore and the offensive line tradition that they've quickly built under him with the 2 straight Joe Moore awards. And then, Nitarian Nitro Tuggle, that's one of the best nicknames in the class too. He's a 2024 receiver from Indiana. That's kind of a touchdown waiting to happen from Napanee Northwood. He was offered on campus. He already loves Coach Bellamy. Says Michigan's one of his top schools right now. You got to keep an eye on places like Georgia and Tennessee, Penn State, some of the contenders for him. But Michigan certainly moved the needle for Nitro Tuggle there.
And you got a crystal ball for their rival, too. Ohio State, their class ranks 14th with 4 commits and an average rating of 94.2. That's the fourth best rating out of the top 50 classes right now. Sounds like they could be adding a running back to the class soon. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I like where they stand for in-state running back Sam Williams-Dixon. My prediction joins Bucknuts insider Bill Kurelic, but Sam Williams-Dixon had 41 touchdowns as a junior, nearly 2,000 yards combined when you're talking about rushing and receiving. So he's an every down back that I got a chance to see at the Best of the Midwest Combine 2 years ago and thought he was fantastic in that setting. Ohio State, they didn't sign a running back last year. Their top 10 class did not have a running back. Their running back room is stocked with some of the best players in college football. If they can stay healthy, that's a running back room ripe for a major bounce back year this year as Ohio State tries to go back to the college football playoff. But running back's a very important position for them this cycle, and like where they stand for Sam Williams-Dixon, but they're in the mix for several others. Certainly another in-state back, Jordan Marshall, is highly coveted. I think they're battling Michigan for him. James Peoples from San Antonio, really like Ohio State's position for him as he comes back to Columbus here this spring. Jordan Lyle from St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida. DeJuan Williams from St. Francis in Baltimore. A couple backs from powerhouse programs that have Ohio State on their short list. And Kevin Riley's a top 247 running back from Alabama. Ohio State, they don't normally recruit the state of Alabama too often, but Kevin Riley's one where there's been a lot of interaction and high interest in Ohio State from him as well. So Ohio State in the mix for a lot of the nation's top running backs right now. I could see them take 2-3 guys at the position this cycle, and Sam Williams-Dixon is one that they're definitely positioned well for as we talk today.
Yeah, looking at the roster now, the current running back room's getting a little older, so those RBs definitely necessary this cycle. All right. I think it's time for another round of Stump Steve, where we give Steve the info on past top 247 players from the past 10 years or so, and we try to see if he remembers where they went to school. Do you remember, what was your record last week, Steve? Was it 2-1?
2-1.
Okay. All right. So we got you. We're going to try to get you again. Director Jason, let's see the first one. From class of 2012, it's 4-star running back Duke Johnson from Miami Norland.
He went to Miami, and he's one of the top 3 7-on-7 players I've ever seen. Very dynamic in space, electric catching the football. He could find his top-end speed quickly. Had a really nice NFL career, too, as a kind of an all-purpose back on Sundays as well. But yeah, I'll never forget Duke Johnson, just because 7-on-7 was really starting to ramp up when in his era, and he was one of the most dominant players in that setting.
All right, I'm going to try to make this next one a little harder. Class of 2016, 5-star linebacker Lindell Wilson from Carver, Montgomery. That's not the name he goes by, but you can see it on the screen.
Yeah, he went to Alabama.
Yeah, that one was way too easy. Everyone knows Mac Wilson. Picked Bama over Georgia and Florida.
Yep, national champ.
Mm-hmm. I covered him at Bama too when I lived in Birmingham. He was quite the charismatic guy. We're going to stay in the class of 2016 for this last one. 4-star cornerback Greedy Williams from Calvary Baptist in Shreveport.
He went to LSU.
Yep, another easy one. Okay, so how about a little bonus trivia here? All 3 players were drafted by the same NFL team. Do you know which team that is?
Cleveland?
What? Okay, we gotta switch things up here. Steve, you're too good at this.
Well, I'm not perfect. We've gotten me a couple times. It was nice to get one right in Alabama. That's where my misses have been.
Yeah, I feel like these ones were a little obvious. I feel like Mac Wilson and Greedy Williams are like household names for those two programs.
You almost have to like start picking guys that didn't have good careers.
Yeah.
That would be, because Recruit and Expile this show, so they'll remember those names also, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that dude." That's kind of the point, right? We want me to like
Right.
go for 3 because I forgot about that dude.
All right, we will keep that in mind for next week. That's going to be a wrap for us here on this Monday. Remember, we'll be back on Friday, so send in your mailbag questions. You can send them to us on Twitter at 247sports or comment on this video. And while you're at it, please like this video and subscribe to the 247 Sports channel. For Steve Wiltfong, I'm Grace Remington. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.